We are very pleased this afternoon to have Miss Margo Day joining us as our lunchtime speaker. Miss Day is a longtime advocate for gender equality. She has had an incredible and impressive career as a woman leader and pioneer in the technology industry, including nearly 20 years that she spent as a vice president at Microsoft, and most recently as the vice president of US education, where she worked with K through 12 and higher educational institutions to bring technology into the classroom and to empower students to create the world of tomorrow. Last year, Ms. Day founded the Mutilation Project to focus her talents on eradicating one of the most egregious types of gender-based violence in our world, female genital mutilation and child marriage, specifically in Kenya. The Mutilation Project's mission is to create a gender equitable world where every girl and woman has the agency to live a hope-filled future of her own design. And it does so by empowering them through educational, economic opportunities, as well as focusing on eradicating the gender-based violence that I mentioned. So we thank you very much, Ms. Day. I will turn it over to you, and Stephen Morse will be leading the Q&A for her as well.
Great, Ashley. Thank you for the wonderful introduction, and I'm honored to be joining everyone here today. And Emily, let me also just extend my best wishes for your trip to Madrid as well. I love the mission of Seattle Rotary. Rotarians inspire hope. And that's actually what this talk is really all about, is when people can begin to realize that they can achieve their dreams, it creates a power. And this power is transformative in the way that it involves thousands in its wake. And that's what we're seeing today. And the hope here for this project that I'll take you through and what I'm involved in, it really is all about addressing one of these issues, female genital mutilation and child marriage, that you just think is one of these intractable things that can never be solved. But I'm here to tell you that it can. And it can because if you can provide people with hope and a way to realize that hope, the inherent nature, human nature, will grasp onto that and change will indeed happen. The other thing I'd like to do before I just jump into my slides is introduce Kathy Saunders from World Vision. World Vision is one of the two organizations that Mutilation Project actually funds, and they're doing the majority of the work in Kenya for this eradication of FGM. And so Kathy will be available for questions as well. But with that, let me jump in here, and I'll share my screen. And I just have some pictures and some different things to talk to you guys about. Let me just move this out of the way. First of all, my favorite African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that's why I just think it's so cool to be talking to Rotarians. The other piece that I'll share with you just about myself is that I'm a beneficiary. I had a third grade teacher who believed in me, a shy, introverted little kid who was really good at math and science, but needed an adult to believe in her. And what Mrs. Belsvik did for me when I was in third grade was allow me to demonstrate to the entire Newport Hills Elementary School, and yes, that's in Bellevue, Washington, to perform the volcano experiment in front of not only the entire school, but parents as well. And when Mrs. Belsvik spoke into my life in this way, to give me an opportunity to show people what I could do, it set a foundation in my life that I'm still standing on today. And over the course of my life, I've had a whole variety of people open up opportunities for me to step into my potential. And so when I think about humanity, this is a truth, and it's a sad truth, but it is a truth. And it's this: every person has tremendous potential. The problem is the opportunity to actually build on that potential and exercise that potential in order for it to be realized. That kind of opportunity doesn't exist very often. And I've had a phenomenal career in technology. It's just been great. 34 years. And as Ashley said, I was almost 20 years at Microsoft. And in 2009, I turned 50 years old. And throughout my career to that point and throughout my life to that point, realizing that I'm a beneficiary, people have helped me along the way. I've wanted to help people along the way as well. I mentored people. I wrote, lots of different checks to charity, but I was feeling a stirring in my soul that it was time to really step out and do something even bigger, but I didn't know what that was. But the thing that I did know was that I wanted to really express my faith in God by showing God's love through the works that are being done. And Daniel, the talk the inspirational talk that you gave us to start was so incredibly powerful for me to listen to, because I really wanted to step into this void and help people and help girls. I knew that World Vision, and I know that World Vision actually is an organization that works with everyone, that they are designed to eliminate extreme poverty, and they're a children and a child-focused organization. And so I thought, I think I want to work with them, but I don't understand the work that they do, and I don't know how that work is done. And so I reached out to them to say, I'll go wherever you want me to go, and I'll see whatever you want me to see. I just know that I need to be doing more than what I'm doing today. So World Vision in 2009 took me to Kenya, and they took me to a place that's 250 miles northwest of the capital of the country, a place where no tourist goes. And they wanted to show me the work that they do. And so they showed me a clean water project. They showed me work that they do with disabled people. They showed work that they do with orphans and vulnerable children. And the last day of my trip, they added a visit to a primary school because they wanted me to see a rescue center for girls. And so the natural question, after 4 days of seeing all this amazing but heartbreaking work, heartbreaking situations, but amazing work that World Vision does, we're driving out to this rescue center. And I said, it's a rescue center for girls? What are these girls being rescued from? And that's when I learned about the practice in certain tribes in Kenya around female genital mutilation and child marriage. And in fact, female genital mutilation, which 200 million women alive today have undergone, and is a prerequisite to a girl being married off as a child when she's 12 or 13 years old. And so we're driving up and I see this billboard that there are 34 girls in a rescue center for girls. And so I was able to meet those girls that day and talk with them. And what I saw that day in this picture was so profound, because what I realized was I was seeing just girls. These are girls that are, I was their age at one point, 8, 9, 10 years old, but these girls had a different story than my own. These girls, when they were 8 or 9 years old, decided that they didn't want to be cut and married off. They wanted a different future for themselves. And so they ran, and they knew that there was a World Vision Rescue Center somewhere. And I heard these harrowing stories of how they had to sleep in trees at night because the communities were pursuing them, because these girls were running away, and they had to be cut because then they had to be married off. And they made their way into this rescue center. And right then and there, at this time, what I saw in their eyes was two things. The first was this fierce determination for a better life. And the second was this desire to be loved and embraced as a child that was valuable. And my whole world changed, because I realized right then and there, I could have been one of those girls. And when I was 8 or 9 years old, I will tell you, I did not have the courage. I would not have had the courage to do what these girls had done. And so I found the thing that I was called to do. And the thing that they asked of me that day was this. There were 0 secondary schools, high schools for girls, none in this entire area. Why? Because virtually every girl was cut by the age of 12 and married off to a man much older than her. And so why did you have high schools for girls? Because they're all married off. And so these girls said, will you support our futures through education? And so I came back, worked with a bunch of colleagues and a number of people, worked with World Vision, and we constructed a school. And here it is, St. Elizabeth's Girls Secondary School. And it was the very first school that was built in this entire area. And the first year that it was established, 69 girls were in the school. And the next year, 127. And the next year, 212. We knew that we had hit on something that says, if parents have an alternative to the cut, every parent wants something better for their children. But you know something? Building a school was not enough. Because in these cultures, it's the father of the girl that receives a dowry, a bride price, in exchange for her girl. And so you have this prevailing mindset that says, from the parent's point of view, here's a father's quote, you're going to be nothing. Because girl is in school. She was probably at St. Elizabeth's. I would have gotten cows for you. And so from this need of saying, hey, look at, this is an issue. It needs to be solved because girls are worthy of a better future than a destiny that's a hopeless one of child marriage and female genital mutilation. World Vision created the Kenyan Big Dream, which seeks to eliminate the root causes of FGM and child marriage so that families can thrive and girls can create a future of their own design. And so you say, okay, then what are the root causes of FGM and child marriage? And there's 3. Extreme poverty. People in this area live on $1.04 a day. The World Bank line for extreme poverty is $1.90 a day. So it's extreme poverty. The next, is lack of an education. Most of the kids especially the girls, get pulled out of school when they're in 3rd or 4th grade, and not all the boys go to school. And so as a consequence, you have adults that are not educated and many of whom are illiterate, let alone then now for the children that they're raising, how do you ensure that there is access to quality of education? And the third is around cultural norms. And so what World Vision set out to do was to define a project that addresses all 3. And so here's an example of St. Elizabeth's, the school that we first built. It is a high quality school with sciences, math, English, geography, literature, etc., all part of the curriculum. And here's what is so amazing is World Vision's so smart because they realize that once they begin to paint and show parents what the possibility is for their children when they go to school, parents start advocating with government agencies and authorities to build schools. So whereas in 2009, there were no schools and we built the first one, fast forward to today, 11 years, there are 29 girls' secondary schools. And here are hundreds of girls going to a different school. And I tell you what, you can cut the joy with a knife. But World Vision does more than that. They have to address these cultural norms. And so here's an example of the stakeholders that are in any given community. You have men, you have chiefs, you have leading ladies, all of whom are invested in this cultural norm that says a girl is not a woman until she is cut. So what does World Vision do? This picture on the right-hand side, here you see the World Vision representative working with government agencies as well. But the 2 people on this right-hand side, These are two elders of the Pocot community. And so what World Vision did was co-created with the elders an alternative rite of passage that celebrates all of the beautiful parts of the Pocot culture. Here's that same guy from the previous photo. His name is William, long name, can't pronounce it, but he's one of the elders in the Pocot community. They create an alternative to the cut that still says and teaches the children that these are all the beautiful things of your culture, but let's throw away the cut. And so they get educated on reproductive health, things that they've never learned before. They learn financial literacy. They really get to understand the value of education and how education supports their future. And at the end of a weeks-long training, all of the participants, with all of the parents and the community members, they do this huge march proclaiming that we will accept FGM no more in our community. And because we've gone through the alternative rites of passage, we are now adults. And so thousands of children have now gone through this alternative rite of passage. And so what we started to see was that the prevalence of FGM started to drop within the first 3 years. But it takes more, because whenever you're going through a mindset and a cultural change, you have to involve the community. They've got to own it and want to be part of creating a very different future for themselves. And so World Vision facilitates workshops working with community members where they get invited in, and the community members, define what are the key issues in your community that you want to see changed. And so here's an example. This is a picture. These are all pictures that I've taken, just by the way. And so I'm sitting in one of these community meetings, and what are we exploring? School dropout, alcoholism, and FGM. And then the community members, along with World Vision's facilitation, they go through and describe what are the causes, what are the effects, what do we need to end up doing? Oop, I guess I missed a picture, that's okay. And then at the end, the community members come together, create their own plan, and then work that plan in their own communities so that they're also becoming a driving force. So these kinds of programs begin to address these cultural norms and societal norms that exist. But what about this problem of extreme poverty? Because at the end of the day, the girl equates to a bride price to her family. So what World Vision does is teach the community different agricultural and husbandry techniques that they never learned from their mothers and fathers, because their mothers and fathers never learned it from their mothers and fathers. And so this is a way now to help communities if they just have a small plot of land and are just planting maize, which is not a highly nutritious crop and is subject to all kinds of worms and all kinds of other things. They teach the communities how to plant additional crops that are nutritious and that the soils can actually produce. So they can begin not only to feed their families nutritious crops, things like kale and spinach and, all kinds of, squash and all kinds of good stuff, but at the same time, create the conditions to overproduce so that they can start selling those crops as cash crops, which raises the economic standards. It's the same thing in husbandry, whether it's chickens or goats or cattle. I happen to show chickens because an egg is 80% water. So if a chicken doesn't have access to water during the day, guess what? That chicken doesn't produce very many eggs. And so oftentimes a family might get 1 or 2 eggs a week out of a group of chickens. Well, you put a chicken drinker, which is this little picture up here, with chickens, and now the chickens can start drinking. And guess what? You see all the eggs down here in this tray. But the other thing that these people didn't know, they have no really basis for understanding financial literacy and actually how they can not only produce and make money, but that they can save those dollars and then come together in a collective called a savings group, where they can begin to loan money to one another. And then based on the loan rate and the loan getting paid back, then the group overall makes profit. And so not only does World Vision work with individuals, but they have created a way for loans to be done between community members, which then increases the overall profit for the community itself. These types of interventions now address all 3 causes of the root causes of FGM. And then at the same time, World Vision partners with other organizations so that girls themselves can also continue on using their brains now in a way to also create economic opportunities for themselves, whether it's in programming and coding, going on to college and university, creating small agricultural businesses themselves. And what we find is the youth then begin to invest back into the community members and show the community members, I love this picture, technology that they can use to increase the yields in their own farms. Like, for example, what's being shown here on a smartphone is an agricultural app from Penn State University about tomatoes. And the fact when you stake up tomatoes, the yields go up, and you can just see these women are like, what? This is the coolest thing in the world. And so at the end of the day, lives are being transformed. This is Lillian Mundai. The picture on the left-hand side is when I met Lillian in 2009 as a little girl at that rescue center, and she was one of the stories that I heard. This picture is Lillian graduating. Not only she graduated from college in this picture, but she graduated from high school, St. Elizabeth's, to go on to college. Lillian, because of all of the training that she received, she's an entrepreneur. And she actually has 3 different businesses. And just as importantly, in December of 2018, Lillian married James, a Pocot man who was part of an alternative rite of passage and who said, I only want to marry uncut, educated girls because he wants to be part of the future as well. And so Isaac is their son. So here's what's happened, you guys. In this very first community that I visited in 2009, the prevalence of FGM at that time was north of 95%. In less than 10 years, because of all of what you've just seen, that prevalence rate is under 10%. Women who used to do the circumcising as their jobs, they're now being empowered economically. In fact, over 42 women that used to be circumcisers have put down their knives. 500,000 people programmed to date, and programmed starting 3 years ago for the Kenya Big Dream. Over 500,000 people have now been reached and touched by World Vision in all of this programming. And so the World Vision Kenya Big Dream is a $30 million program because they want to take this approach, because they know it works, and bring it to every place where they work in Kenya, where FGM prevalence is extremely high. And so that's why I started the Kuno Project, is I want to help World Vision raise as much money as they can, because I know this project works. And so that's it. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So let's open this up now for Q&A.
Thank you, Margo. That's incredible. And we have a couple minutes for Q&A in the chat box. Chat is live. So, Margo, thank you for this important work. Very recently, I was told of Mary's Way, which seems to be fighting the same horrific practices.
Okay.
Are you aware of them? And if so, is their work similar and or duplicative?
So I'm not familiar with Mary's Way. And so I've got to do a little research on that. If I can come back to the Rotary group after I've just taken a quick look, I'm happy to do it. I'm just totally conscious of time.
Yeah, perfect. Next, do you also teach the boys that this is not cool so they don't do it themselves in years ahead?
Great question. Yes. So and at the alternative rites of passage, this is where things get really, really cool. World Vision actually, it's not just for girls, it's for boys as well. And so the mix that they put together is 2/3 girls, 1/3 boys go through this alternative rites of passage. The other thing that World Vision does is actually work with faith leaders, because when you're talking about mindset change and heart change, really as well, you really need to engage the people that are trusted in the communities and that have these leading voices. Elders are one group, faith leaders are another group. And so World Vision works with pastors across the board so that they can also be working with their parishioners, men and women, boys and girls, to totally rethink this overall practice.
That's amazing. Margo, you are amazing. Do you offer citizen diplomacy trips to visit these schools in Kenya?
So yes, World Vision, there's two different ways. One is through World Vision. They put together trips once or twice a year and to go visit this work in the hope, though, that people will be moved and hopefully contribute, because we really are trying to raise funds for this. And then the second way is there is a mentoring organization that is one of World Vision's partners, the Global Give Back Circle. And they have women who mentor the girls come and visit as well. So we can kind of figure something out, and let's talk to World Vision. Let's see what might be possible.
I love it. I love it. We have time for just a couple more. What kind of job opportunities are available for the girls once they get their education?
Yeah, so here's what becomes really, really interesting is that there is just like here, actually, small business is one of the main drivers of the economy, just like it is here. It's kind of remarkable. And so part of the training that the girls receive, both through high school and in some of these mentoring times, is entrepreneurship training. And so whether it is smallholder farming, it could be things like hairdressing, like when Lillian, who I showed you, she has a hairdressing shop. She's actually raising chicks for eggs. And then there's also beekeeping up in that area, which is the honey that these bees produce up in West Pokot, Kenya, is actually really pretty amazing. So think small business and empowering small business. Then if girls go on into either college or university, there's a huge need for teachers, for healthcare workers, for laboratory technicians, because all of those provide services into the communities themselves. And then there's also a very big need, now that more money is starting to flow in, there's also a very big need for engineering talent, whether it's for clean water engineering or electrical engineering, because electricity is starting to come into these communities as well.
That's great. That's great. Wow. Thank you so much. This has been very, very inspiring.
Thanks,
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. What an inspiration. I think it's a great reminder, like you said at the beginning, really following and listening to that little voice inside of yourself of taking action when you feel like you need to, and the impact that a large group of people can have on a community. Thank you so much. In recognition of you taking the time out of your busy schedule to share this important work with us, we're donating 600 servings of fresh produce in your name to Harvest Against Hunger.
I love it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to move on to thanking our gold sponsors who help make these meetings possible and allow for access to recordings post-meeting. Thank you to Liz Powell from Remax on Market and our fabulous Bob Alexander for your continued support of Seattle 4.